Can you hear me properly?
Yes, Doc.
Okay. So we are done with the introduction of the physiology last time. We ended up with the negative feedback. No? If I forgot to mention the positive feedback, that is another way of control. Diba? The positive feedback. This is a vicious cycle. Usually, once it starts, it will go tuloy-tuloy. Just like your delivering of the baby, once the cervix will dilate, it will continue dilating until it reaches 10 to 12 centimeters. Okay? And then when it has to be this size. No? It has to fit in your fingers so that the head of the baby can go out. So once the cervix will dilate, it will continue contracting. So that is a positive feedback. Another is blood clotting. So that when there is a wound, the platelets will migrate to the area. And then there is also an example of a positive feedback. Also nerve signal of the nerve, right? In blood clotting, there is bleeding. So it will decrease the cardiac output. So decrease in the arterial pressure. So weakening of the heart. That is a positive feedback. Further decrease in the coronary blood flow, and further the heart will become weaker until death can follow. This is what usually happens if there is an accident, especially in the, for example, in the highway. And then the motorcycle usually has lots of accident. So there is bleeding. So you have to size up where the bleeding is. Is it in the head or in the extremities? So you'll have to exert pressure, for example, in the leg, right leg. So if there is bleeding there, then you have to press on the artery, if you can do it. Then now we will go to the cell. There are two major parts of the cell, okay? The nucleus and the cytoplasm. The nucleus is surrounded by a nuclear membrane, and the cytoplasm is surrounded by cell membrane. This is the nucleus. This whole thing is the nucleus. And the nucleus is inside the nucleus, okay? And this is surrounded by a plasma membrane, your cell. So the two major parts are your nucleus and the cytoplasm, surrounded by cell membranes. Even the nucleus is still surrounded by nuclear membrane. The protoplasm they are the substances that make up the cell. The cell is made up of 70 to 85% water and electrolytes such as your inorganic chemicals for cellular reactions. Proteins is 10 to 20%. Lipids and carbohydrates will make up your protoplasm. Your protein is 10 to 20%. So it can either be structural proteins such as your microtubules or globular proteins. The globular proteins are the enzymes, and they are mobile. Yeah? These globular proteins, they flow through the blood. That's why they can act on any part. What is that? So the lipids is made up of 2% phospholipids, cholesterol, and triglycerides. And this cholesterol is the one that you are always afraid, right? Very conscious are the people about cholesterol. But in fact, what happened to this? In fact, the cholesterol is the one that maintains the fluidity of the cell wall. So you don't have to be afraid with the cholesterol, because without the cholesterol, if you have a hypercholesterolemia, the cell wall, just like your blood vessels, will harden, okay? But if there is also less cholesterol in the cell wall, what will happen? The cell wall is too fluid so that the toxins can easily come in. So actually your cholesterol helps in maintaining the integrity of the cell wall. So you don't have to be afraid with the cholesterol. You are afraid to eat the egg yolk of one boiled egg, right? But when I was at the University of the Philippines, my professor said, do not be afraid with egg yolk of the boiled egg. Because, why? The cholesterol there is only 0.03 micra. See, very small. Your one matchbox size of pork, one slice of pork, as big as your very small matchbox, it has more cholesterol than your egg, boiled egg. So do not be afraid. But of course, if you eat too much of your meat and, you know, chicken skin, ay, ang sarap ng chicken skin na chicharon, right? It has, of course, plenty of cholesterol. And if that is your favorite and you keep on eating that, then time will come when your blood vessels, you have plenty of cholesterol, so your blood vessels will harden. And what will happen if your blood vessels will harden? Your in dilation, you cannot dilate very well. So it cannot accommodate if there is increase in pressure. So what happens? You will develop hypertension. But if vegetables doesn't have fat from vegetables doesn't have cholesterol, because cholesterol is only found in animals. Your triglycerides is a neutral fat. This is what matters, cholesterol and your triglycerides. They are very contributors to your hypertension later on. So your lipids are insoluble in water. So they form water barrier. So where will the water pass? There are water pores in the cell wall, the aquaporins. Then another component is your carbohydrate. Carbohydrates, upon breaking up, will end as glucose. And glucose is the nutrition of the cell. It varies. Usually, plenty in muscle cells, but more so in liver cells, because glucose is the end product of metabolism of carbohydrates. That's why if you would like to exercise, then you will have to take in plenty of carbohydrates. But if you would like your energy to be sustained, you will also have to take proteins in your diet. Exercise, you have to take in proteins and carbohydrates. But if you would like to have a balanced diet, then you will have to take in protein, lipids, and carbohydrates. This is the cell membrane. This cell membrane, this is your plasma membrane of the red blood cell. See, but the red blood cells, they don't have nucleus anymore. They regulate the passage of substances into and out of the cells and between cell organelles and cytosol. They detect chemical messengers arriving at the cell surface and link adjacent cells together by membrane junctions. And they anchor cells to the extracellular matrix, your cell membrane. This is your cell membrane. You have two types of proteins. The integral protein and the peripheral protein. The peripheral protein they are found inside. And integral protein, they are the ones that traverses the cell wall. Your cell wall is lipid bilayer. This is the lipid. This one is phospholipid. No? Phospholipid, cholesterol, and triglycerides. The cell membrane is 55% proteins, 25% phospholipids, 13% cholesterol, and other lipids is only 4%. Carbohydrate is only 3%. The membrane lipid is interspersed with globular protein. This is your globular protein. You have to memorize this. The phospholic portion of the phospholipid is hydrophilic. What do you mean by philic? Hydro. Doesn't allow water. Hindi mahilig sa water. Kung boys pa yan, hindi mahilig sa chicks. Hydrophilic. No? Water, hydro is water, philic. So it doesn't allow water to pass through, okay? They are polar regions. And so what will it do? Because it will protect the cell, okay? So there is a fatty portion of the phospholipid at the center, which is hydrophilic. This is the one that will allow the water to pass through. And there are pores in the membrane. The aquaporins, that is where your water passes through. So you have to memorize this. The membrane proteins are your integral proteins and your peripheral proteins. So your integral proteins are the ones interspersed with the lipid bilayer. No? They are the ones that form channels and pores. And they can be carrier or teka. Ano yan? Peripheral, they form the channels because the integral proteins, they could be enzymes also, carrier, and they could be enzymes, just like your sodium potassium ATPase. The peripheral proteins is attached to the inner surface of the membrane. This one. They act as enzymes. Just their sodium potassium ATPase. This one is your extracellular. This is your intracellular fluid, and this is your extracellular fluid. And this is your amino end and your carboxyl end. This is transmembrane protein, okay? Traversing through the phospholipid layer. A moment. Where are we now? Your peripheral protein, the one end is attached, your carboxyl end is attached to the peripheral protein. So it finds its way inside, lying across, okay? And they could act as enzymes. Ek. So you have to memorize this. The carbohydrates. This is in combination with proteins and lipids. So they can be glycoproteins or glycolipids. And they are negatively charged. They connect adjacent cells. They act as hormone and neurotransmitter receptors. This carbohydrate portion of the glycoprotein, okay? They are also antibody receptors. Many cells are physically joined at discrete locations by specialized type of junctions, such as the three types: the desmosomes, the tight junctions, or the gap junctions. The desmosomes link cells that are subject to considerable strain, just like your intestines, no? And your tight junctions, they limit the passage of molecules through the extracellular space between the cells. They are found primarily in epithelial cells. You can also find this in your developing sperm. The tight junctions, so they are protected from toxins of the outside environment. Then you have your gap junctions. They form channels. Between the cytosol of the adjacent cells, such as your cardiac muscles. That's why the so the action potential can easily pass through the muscles. That's why they can act as a syncytium, no? The cardiac muscles. What else? The cytoplasm is the region of the cell outside the nucleus. It is fluid and is where organelles are found. Cytosol is the fluid portion of the cytoplasm outside the cell organelles. Cytosol. What are your cell organelles? You have your ribosomes, endoplasmic, your lysosomes, I'm sorry, my signal is not good. The signal is not good. Yeah.
Yes, Doc. Slide
Nagtirik,
13 na ka, Doc.
nagtirik ako. My signal here is not good.
Pero,
Can you hear me?
yes, Doc. Clear.
Pero yung slides ko.
13 na ka, Doc. Naka-highlight ang 13.
Nga. Ayan, yan. So the nucleus is the largest organelle. And the nucleus, nucleolus, it is also surrounded by a nuclear envelope. Its function is to transmit genetic information in the form of DNA. So the genetic information passes from the nucleus to the cytoplasm, where amino acids are assembled into proteins. So the nucleolus is found inside the nucleus, consists of proteins associated with ribosomal proteins. This is the one that will express the ribosomal proteins, site of ribosomal RNA synthesis. Assembles RNA and protein components of ribosomal subunits, which then moves to the cytoplasm. This is where transcription takes place. Then this transferred to the cytoplasm through your messenger RNA, then translation takes place in the endoplasmic reticulum. Have rough ER or smooth ER. The rough ER produces the proteins, and your smooth ER synthesizes the fatty acids and steroids. So, and this stores and releases calcium, which produces various cell activities. The proteins in the rough endoplasmic reticulum, they enter the lumen of the reticulum, from which they are distributed to other organelles or secreted from the cell. They are extensive. This one, oh, ganito. So this is your rough endoplasmic reticulum. The Golgi apparatus. They are a series of cup-shaped, closely opposed, flattened membranous sac. They concentrate and modify and sort proteins. So from the endoplasmic reticulum, it goes to the Golgi apparatus. And in the Golgi apparatus, that is where vesicles are formed of the proteins. And then these are being released to the cytoplasm, and they will attach to the membrane, cell membrane, ready for release in case there is a need for the contents of the vesicle. Another organelle is your mitochondria. Round or oval shape. It has two membranes, the outer and the inner membrane. And this is the major site of your ATP production and oxygen utilization and CO2 formation. And these contains enzymes that are active on your Krebs cycle and in phosphorylation. when the amino acid is being phosphorylated, or the enzyme is being phosphorylated, it means it is being activated. Okay. Your lysosomes, peroxisomes. You have your nucleus, nucleolus. You have your endoplasmic reticulum, your ribosomes. Then you have your Golgi apparatus. And then you have your lysosomes and your peroxisomes. Your lysosomes, they contain acidic fluid with a variety of digestive enzymes. They act as cellular stomach that digest bacteria, debris, cellular debris, or engulf cells or viruses. No? Peroxisomes also are membrane-bound organelle. They use oxygen in a reaction that removes hydrogen from the lipids, alcohol, and toxic substances. One reaction product is hydrogen peroxide, a substance that is toxic to cells. So this will be acted upon by your peroxisomes. The hydrogen will be removed so that it will be converted to water already, and it will not harm the cell. So the lysosomes, they digest yan. Yan na. I think kulang yan.